Hungarian Folk Tales. The Goat Soldiers. A long time ago, in a distant land, there lived a poor lad. His mother and father both died when he was young, and he was all alone. He was poor, he had no one, and so the poor lad became a shepherd. He was still tending sheep when it came time to become a soldier. So he went straight into the army from his flock of sheep. He served his 3 years, and when he returned, he was so poor that he didn't know what to do or where to look. He had nothing to his name and hardly any clothes. There was a farmer who owned a flock of 30 goats, who needed a goat herd, who could herd the goats during the day and milk them every morning, noon and night, and keep their stable clean and tidy. The young lad happened to be passing and took the job straight away and led the goats out to the nearby meadow. But the young lad was no ordinary goat herd. He was sharp and witty and had learned a couple of clever tricks during his time as a soldier. So he talked to the goats all of the time and ordered them around in a military fashion until they learned to understand his simple commands. He marched them up and down, and by the time he was finished, he could get them to parade around the meadow like a miniature army. One day, the lad saw a rich man in a carriage riding past the meadow, so he drove the herd of goats to the side of the road, where he waved, and the rich man stopped his carriage. The lad said, "The reason I stopped you, sir, is to show you what these goats have learnt to do since I have been their goat herd." The rich man in the carriage was very impressed with their performance and asked, "Who owns these goat soldiers?" "Why, they belong to the local farmer." The rich man was so impressed that he purchased all 30 goats but insisted that the young lad should go and work for him for a month. Then the rich man invited all of his rich friends to come and see for themselves. "I want to show you something very interesting, something you've never seen in your life before." gentleman from a foreign land liked the performance so much that he begged to buy the herd of goats. And so the rich man sold them to him. The foreign gentleman reached into his pocket and paid the price, and the rich man gave all the money to the goat herd, who used the money to buy a plot of land, build a fine house, and buy himself some good clothes, and to live a proper life like other people did. And he lived happily ever after. Hungarian Folk Tales. Stone Soup. Once upon a time, a poor young soldier was coming home from the war. The poor soul wandered from one village to another, threadbare and hungry. He was offered no bread or even a little hot soup, anywhere at all. He went from house to house asking for something to eat. But the people either set the dogs on him or told him they themselves were too poor to eat. As he carried on from gate to gate, he made up his mind to go into the first house and make a pot of soup for himself, whoever the owner of the house might be. He picked up a stone at the entrance of a house and walked in. The owner was an old woman. "Good morning, old lady." "Good morning to you, young soldier." "Are you well today, old lady?" "I am well. And how are you, young soldier?" "I'm also well. But I have to say that I would love to eat a little soup, if you have any to spare." "Oh, young soldier, I'd gladly give you some if I had any, but I'm as poor as a church mouse. I have nothing. My pantry, my attic, and my whole house are all empty. I have nothing, not even a crust of bread." "Well," said the soldier, "I'm not so poor. I have a stone right here in my pocket. I could make a soup out of it. All I need is a pot or a pan or something to cook it in." "Well, I could give you one. I have plenty of pots in the house," said the old woman, "but I have nothing to put in them." The soldier washed the stone nice and neatly and placed it in the pot. The old woman lit the fire. The soldier poured water over the stone and placed it on the fire to cook. He even stirred it with a long wooden spoon. The old woman watched him with curiosity. The soldier even tried the soup. "Well, it's good enough," he said, "but if it had a little salt in it, it would be even better." "I'll get you some salt. I have plenty." The soldier put the salt into it, stirred it, and said, "If you had a spoonful of fat, that would make it even better." The old woman said, "I do have some. I'll bring it right away." She brought a spoonful of fat, and they put it in the pot. The soldier stirred it and tried it, while the old woman watched his every move. The soldier said, "Well, you know, I'm used to making stone soup, but I usually make it with a piece of sausage. That gives it a better flavour." "Oh, I have some sausage," said the old woman. "I'll give you some from the pantry." Then the soldier said, "Bring 2 pieces, so then you'll have one and I'll have one too." "Very well, I shall bring 2." And the old woman brought 2 pieces of sausage. The soldier put them both in the pot, then stirred it and tried it. "Do you know," he said, if you have some potatoes, we could cut some up and put them in here too. And if you have some vegetables, that would really top it all. Oh, but I do have some, said the old woman, and I'll bring them at once. So she hurried off right away, pulled up some potatoes and vegetables, which they cleaned and cut into pieces and put into the soup. Then the soldier stirred it, tasted it, and said to the old woman, "You should try it too. It's really good." The old woman tried the soup and said, "Well, I would have never have believed that you could make such a good soup from a stone." They left it to cook a while. Then the soldier said, "A little rice would improve it, but I'm not sure you have any." "Oh, but I do have some rice." Then they put some rice into the soup too. Now it's just like the soups I usually make. Then they waited for the soup to be ready, and the soldier served the old woman and himself a bowlful each, and they both began to eat. The old woman couldn't help wondering how such a good soup like this had been made out of a stone. When they had had enough to eat, the old woman said to the soldier, "Tell me, young soldier, would you sell me this stone? Quite often I have nothing to cook, but with this stone I would always have at least a little soup." "Well, why not? It's yours for 100 florins. The old woman quickly gave him the 100 florins and wrapped the stone from the soup in a cloth so she could use it again to make soup whenever she wanted. Then the young soldier left with the 100 florins before the old woman could change her mind. So he had satisfied his hunger, and he had 100 florins for his troubles. He walked cheerfully on till nightfall, when he met another old woman who had no idea how to make good soup out of a stone either. He played his trick again and had a good meal on top of it. And I don't know what kind of soup the old woman made after that, as I was told this story by an old aunt of mine. But I suppose they tried it when they were poor back in the old country. But whatever the case, they all lived happily ever after. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Prince Who Turned into Stone. Once upon a time, there lived an old king who had 2 fine sons. One day they stood before their father, and they said it was time for them to go and see the world and the 7 seas. The old king was sad, but as there was nothing he could do, he filled their pockets with gold and bade them farewell. The boys said goodbye, and off they went. They kept walking for a long time until they finally reached a strange new town. When they arrived, the people of the town were having a fair. They were selling beautiful bouquets of flowers, and each prince bought one for himself. They tied a red ribbon around one and a green around the other, and they went on their way. Suddenly they came upon a man with a huge beard. "Which way are you going, old man?" "I would like to sell these animals here," he said, "if only there was someone to buy them." The 2 princes felt very sorry for the old man, and since they liked the animals anyway, they finally bought them. And so they kept marching forward until they came to a fork in the road. Finally, the younger one said, "It's your turn to choose, brother. I will take the black road." "All right, but let me tell you what. See this walnut tree by the roadside? Let's both tie our bouquets on a branch. When one of us gets back here and sees that the flowers of the other one have wilted and withered, he should know that his brother is dead." They did so and went their separate ways. The older brother kept going until he arrived in a town. The place was all covered in black drapes. The prince went into an inn and asked the innkeeper why they were in mourning. The innkeeper explained that there was a foreign knight who said that the king should give him the country and his daughter unless he was defeated by one of the king's men. Many young warriors responded to the challenge, but they were all slain, including the 2 sons of the king. Our prince challenged the foreign knight the next morning, and he was so quick and clever with a sword that the foreign knight was killed in an instant. There was celebration and joy in the town. The king took the prince to his palace and promised him the hand of his daughter, plus the country, once he died. And they lived happily without a care in the world. One day the king said, "I would love to eat some wild boar." "I'll be happy to get you some if that's what you want." The prince mounted his horse and rode out to the forest, taking the animals with him. He was busy trying to find a wild boar, but finally night fell. He settled down and made a fire to keep himself warm. Suddenly he heard a voice calling from the tree above. "I'm cold. I'm freezing." "If you're so cold, why don't you come down? I have a fire burning down here. This should warm you up." As he looked up, he spotted an incredibly old woman among the branches. "I would never dare to descend. I'm frightened of the beasts," she croaked. "I will throw down a twig, hit all of them with it, then I know they won't hurt me anymore." The prince did as he was told, and all of a sudden, all 3 animals turned into stone. The old hag jumped down from the tree, seized the twig from the young man, and hit him too. The prince immediately turned to stone himself. They were all waiting for the prince to return home, but it was in vain. 1 month went by, and during that time the younger prince visited the town of Joy and returned to the large walnut tree. He saw that his brother's bouquet was wilted and dry. He walked down the road until he got to the town. He found the same inn that his brother visited before him. The innkeeper was very happy to see him. "Thank heavens, the prince is back." "Hey, good man, I'm not the one I seem to be," said the younger prince. "The man before me was probably my brother. I am trying to find him myself." When he spoke to the old king, he told him that his beloved son-in-law went to the forest and no one had seen him since. "I shall not rest until I find him," said the younger prince. Finally, he himself was lost just like his brother. When darkness fell, he lit a fire to keep himself warm, and his animals also stretched out for a rest. Suddenly, he heard a wailing from above his head. "I am cold. I am freezing." "If you're so cold, why don't you come down?" he said. "I have a fire burning down here. This should warm you up." "But I'm afraid of the beasts. I will throw down a twig, hit all 3 of them with it, and then I'll know they won't hurt me anymore." Maybe this old witch killed his brother. Instead of touching the animals, he only stroked the dirt with a twig. And when the old hag jumped down from the tree, she was attacked by the wild beasts. "What have you done with my brother? Where is he?" "The large stone behind you is your brother, and the 3 flat ones are the animals. Swish them with the twig, your touch will revive them." The prince did as he was told. His brother told him everything. Finally, he returned to the witch. "Good deeds are rewarded by good in return, but evil deeds shall be punished. Now it is your turn to turn to stone, lest you should harm another soul." The old witch turned into stone and never left the forest again. She is still there to this very day. Where? Somewhere on this side of here and the far side of there, where a little pig snorts the air.